The Canada-United States border is the world's longest international boundary. The boundary stretches for 5,525 miles from the Atlantic Ocean in the east to the Pacific Ocean to the west. It cuts across lakes, forests, glaciers and towns. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at all 13 US states that border Canada. And just wait till you see what's at number 1, something you might not have thought of, so make sure you watch till the end. Before we begin though, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome travel guides and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you know when we publish a new video. So let's cut to the chase. At 13, Alaska. Alaska shares the longest border with Canada of any state. The 1,538 miles long border is shared with Yukon and British Columbia. Alaska was purchased by the United States from Russia in 1867. The borderline was demarcated in 1903 when the United Kingdom and the United States signed an agreement. The agreement favoured the United States and did not settle well with the Canadians, who felt betrayed by the United Kingdom for preventing a direct outlet from Yukon to the sea. There are 5 border crossings, 2 of which connect Alaska to the Yukon and 3 that connect Alaska to British Columbia. At 12, Washington. The entire northern boundary of Washington state borders British Columbia. The border is 427 miles long. It is a relatively straight boundary demarcated along the 49th parallel. The borderline curved around Vancouver Island to avoid separating the people who were already living on it. There are 13 drivable border crossings, 4 of the busiest connect Seattle to Vancouver. At 11, it's Idaho. Idaho shares a 45-mile long boundary with British Columbia. The boundary is located north of Idaho's narrow strip between Washington state and Montana. There are only 2 border crossing points within the boundary: Port Hill, which is commonly used by passenger vehicles, and Eastport, which is preferred by trucks. At 10, Montana. Montana is the only American state that borders more than 2 Canadian provinces. The state borders British Columbia to the northwest and Alberta and Saskatchewan to the north. The entire boundary covers 545 miles. 4 airports run across the international boundary between Canada and Montana. At 9, it's North Dakota. North Dakota shares a 310-mile long boundary with Saskatchewan and Manitoba to the north. The borderline is fairly straight and contains 18 international border crossings. Portal, Pembina, Niche and Peace Garden are the 4 busiest crossings. The International Peace Garden Airport cuts across the national boundary. Next up at 8, it's Minnesota. The US state of Minnesota shares a 547-mile long border with Canadian provinces of Manitoba and Ontario. Manitoba is located in the northwest corner of Minnesota, while Ontario lies on the north and northeast. Part of the border with Ontario runs along Lake Superior. And now at 7, it's Michigan. Michigan and Ontario share a 721-mile marine boundary. It is the second longest boundary between the 2 countries. There is no land border between Michigan and Canada. The borderline runs along Lake Superior and Lake Huron, demarcating the lake's share owned by both countries. The Blue Water Bridge and St. Clair Tunnel connects Sarnia in Ontario to Port Huron in Michigan. The Ambassador Bridge and the Windsor-Detroit Tunnel connect Windsor, Canada and Detroit, USA. At 6, Ohio. Ohio shares a 146-mile long boundary with Ontario. The borderline is located entirely within Lake Erie. The only form of transport between the 2 territories is by ferry across the lake. The Pelly Island Ferry operates between Sandusky in Ohio and Essex County in Ontario. At 5, it's Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has the shortest border with Canada. The maritime boundary shared with Ontario stretches for just 42 miles within Lake Erie and demarcates the lake share owned by both countries. Pennsylvania has no land boundary with Canada. Four, New York. New York State shares a 445-mile-long boundary with Ontario and Quebec. The Treaty of Paris established the boundary in 1783, while the Webster-Ashburton Treaty 1842 revised the borderline. The St. Lawrence Rivers forms part of the boundary between New York and Ontario. The boundary has 4 of the most used border crossing between Canada and the United States. And now, at 3, it's Vermont. Vermont and Quebec share a 90-mile-long boundary. The Treaty of Paris established the boundary, but the Webster-Ashburton Treaty redefined it. There are 15 border crossing points including Highgate Springs, St. Amand, Pillsburg and Darby Line Stansted, both of which are majorly used by trucks. At 2, it's New Hampshire. New Hampshire shares a 58-mile-long border with Quebec. However, there is only one border crossing located at the terminals of the US Route 3 in the town of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is geographically extensive but has fewer than 1,000 residents. And at 1, it's Maine. The US state of Maine shares a 611-mile-long border with Quebec and New Brunswick, the third longest state boundary with Canada. Between 1838 and 1839, Maine and New Brunswick engaged in territorial disputes over the boundary. In 1842, the United Kingdom and the United States signed in the Webster-Ashburton Treaty that formally ended the dispute. The Aroostook Valley Country Club is located along the border and extends to both countries. There are 24 land border crossing points connecting Maine to Canada. And there you have the 13 US states that border Canada. Did you like what you saw? Let us know in the comments down below. Share this video with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fantastic travel guides. That's all for now. Until next time.